Okay, so now I want to kind of discuss the different theories and whatnot. But before we do, I want to discuss types of learners we have. So that way we can kind of then talk about theories and then talk about how that affects the different types of learners we have and how it affects what we do here. And so the type of kids, I just want to point out and remember that they're going to be inner city kids. And so sometimes, having worked with these kids before, they don't have the motivation to want to learn or to want to do things. They can be kind of stuck in their ways at times, and so sometimes it can be a little bit hard to get them to want to learn, and so we have to be aware of that and that kind of motivation there. But we also have to be aware that there are some that are going to be brand new to this whole English thing, and so they're going to get anxious real quick, and their confidence is going to be real low. You're going to have some that are going to come from a background that has an alphabet in their L1 that's similar to L2, which would be English, right? And then cultures might vary, so you might have some things that some kids might try to do that might be offending another kid's culture that you have to be wary of. So there's a lot of things, right? I'm thinking the majority of the kids that will be in the program are Spanish speaking, from different Hispanic countries, but Spanish speaking primarily, and then are all inner city kids that can meet different motivation levels and other types of things, because it's survive or die or survive in that kind of situation at times, and so that can lead to different behaviors in kids at an early stage. But now to kind of discuss different theories and how they affect second language acquisition, right? And so first of all, we have behaviorism, nativism, and social interactionism. So behaviorism is a much more passive role for the learner, where the teacher models something, a behavior that they want, and the learner intakes it, right, and then practices it. That's kind of behaviorism. Nativism is the belief that a learner can learn their L1 exactly, or their L2 exactly like they learn the L1, right? Just by being immersed in the situation. And then we also have social interactionism, which is kind of as it kind of implies, interaction between socials, like social interaction, right? So the interaction between different levels of learners or different levels of speakers, of people who can speak, different fluency levels, learners that are interacting with people who are at different levels of fluency than they are. Boom, there we go. That's what we're going. That's what we're going for. And so these are all important. And then I want to look in within social interactionism as well. We're going to have one of the other things I want to talk about is the affective filter. And so that was kind of what I was hinting at when I was talking about the type of students that we'll have and the type of kids that we'll have, because that one's all based on anxiety, self-esteem, and motivation. And so this can affect the way that learners learn, because if they're anxious, their brain's not going to want to learn. They're not going to be able to comprehend as much because they're thinking about that too much or whatnot. If they don't have high confidence, they won't be willing to speak, which means they won't be able to practice. And motivation, they just don't have the motivation to do it, and they're not going to be able to learn, And so that's kind of that. And then I also want to talk about the zone of proximal development, which I love the ZPD. And essentially that's scaffolding. And so what scaffolding is like the reaching in of a higher level learner or someone who's completely fluent to help pull the person who is learning just a wee bit farther than they can go. And so think of it as like, no, that's comprehensible input. I was about to say I+1, that's comprehensible input. Another important thing is that we're making sure we're using comprehensible input, which means we're giving them what they already know and then just a little bit more. But we don't want to overwhelm them with new information, because then that's going to just blow their brains and they won't be able to comprehend it. And then I also want to briefly discuss BICS and CALP. I think this is important for the kind of situation that we're in, or that I want to be in. It's that ministry, because one, it's going to have the BICS, which is the basic interpersonal communication skills, right? And so that's going to be your everyday language. I'm going to the store, that's what I'm using. But it's also going to have CALP, because I want to have homework help time where we can help the students with some of their homework. And that's for all the students, not just for the ones that don't speak English. But it's especially important that we know about CALP, which is cognitive academic language proficiency. I always mess that one up. Cognitive academic language proficiency, and that's kind of the academic language. So you're going into school, well, okay, we're talking about multiplication tables, and we're talking about grammar and all this stuff. Like, that's not something you're going to talk about when you go to the store. And so it's important to have that distinction of the different types of English even that we're talking about, because we're going to be learning a lot. We're going to focus a lot on the BICS, on the basic interpersonal skills, right? And there's going to be a little bit of calc, but mainly the BICS. And so it's important that I kind of make that clarification for the next video, which will be discussing how these actually affect what we do in the ministry, right? And so, and so in the next video, I'm going to discuss these. So we kind of got the brief breakdown of them. For the next video, I'm going to discuss how these make some principles for us to build this ministry off of. And so we'll see you in the next one, if it pauses.